Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another podcast. Welcome, Dr. Omer Atilla Ergi.
Hello, Dr. Zulaiha. How are you?
Good, thank you. And yourself?
Good.
That's good. We're very ready to get into today's discussion.
Yes.
And we're going to be looking at what was the age of Aisha radiallahu anha when she married the Prophet, peace be upon him. Now, this is such an important topic because it is one of the key points that Islamophobes use against Islam and against the Prophet. And sometimes they say some horrendous things about the Prophet due to the age of, or their believed age of Aisha radiallahu anha when she married the Prophet. And so it's really important that we address this because I do think that it then creates question marks in the minds of some Muslims as well. So this isn't just aimed at Islamophobes. It's really aimed at Muslims and helping us to better understand.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's to be honest, it's a very disturbing topic to speak for me as well. But I think it's necessary. As you said, there's a lot of slander on the noble Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, our beloved Prophet. And people speak without knowing the truth. That is why I thought we go through this, but I prepared notes this time.
Okay, usually don't you have notes? What makes today different?
Well, I took all the historical evidence with sources. So I want to give the evidence with the sources, inshallah.
So evidence is really important for this topic, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Maybe we should begin from the report. Which Aisha was 9 when she married the Prophet.
Is that because that's commonly used?
It's commonly used because it's the only report.
The only report.
Which says that she was 9. And everything is based on this. But people who base things on this, they don't look at other historical evidence and other reports as well, other Sahih hadiths, which appear in Bukhari, Muslim, all of them as well. They just ignore them for some reason. And in this report, this is a mawqūf hadith. Mawqūf hadith means the sanad, the chain of narrators doesn't go all the way back to the Prophet. It goes back to a Sahabi, a companion. In this case, it's Aisha radiallahu anha herself.
Right.
So in this hadith, in this report, she says that the marriage contract was made at the age of 6.
Yeah.
And the marriage consummated at the age of 9 or 10, according to some reports. And there are a number of issues with this narration, to be honest, if it was taken literally, especially from a historical perspective, because when we look at the history, there's a really serious contradiction there.
As in it doesn't add up with certain events?
Yes, it just doesn't add up.
Right.
Because we know that the noble Prophet ﷺ was the most noble, decent, humble, honest man in history. There's no doubt about that. That is why, it feels bad when people start attacking him without knowing the history. So maybe we should analyze this with historical, factual evidence. I think we'll begin from what Aisha said first.
Okay. So this is that hadith that you mentioned.
Yeah, what does she mean? First, we'll have a look at that. Maybe I'll give you an example with the reference as well.
Okay.
There is a historian called Musa Jarullah. He has a book called Hatun. In the page 81 of this book, according to Arab customs, he says, when girls reach the age of puberty, when their menstrual cycle started, they would have this ceremony in Mecca. It was called Muhayyiz ceremony. And after that, it means they entered into adolescence. And they used to be considered as a woman after that. And many of the Arab women, especially the noble ones amongst the nobility, they used to start counting their age after that time, after the ceremony.
Right. So not at birth, not at birth.
They would start counting. Because I'm a woman now, I start counting my age now.
Okay.
And if we look at Aisha's, narration where she says, I was 9 when I married the Prophet, we need to add, the time before when she began her menstrual cycle, so age of puberty.
Yeah.
And that makes her roughly about 17, 18, if you add that on top. Now, some people might say this is, very speculative. That is why I want to use some, very powerful evidence to support this. I think it's very important to use those evidence.
Evidence that she would have been about 18?
Yes.
So this means that so she said she was 9 when she got married. So this suggests that she reached puberty at 9.
Around
9, which is reasonable, for a female. And then plus 9, so she was 18.
Yes.
And so you're now going to look at historical evidence that supports that she would have been about 18, actually.
Yeah. Can we really prove this? There are very strong evidences to prove it. Like one example I'll give you, and I can say that this is not an apologetic argument. It is based on historical facts. Actually, if we look at, for example, a book by Mawlana Shibli, he lived in the 1800s. The book is called al-Saʿādah. He was a very famous historian. And in his book, he clearly says that when Aisha married the Prophet, she was 18. Very clearly says it in his book. People can refer to this book. It's As-Sābiqūn, volume 2, page 9. That's a very important book because he's a very famous historian. There is another book called Khatam al-Anbiyā, Prophet Muhammad. It was written by Hikmet Berki, and he states that historical records show that Asmāʼ, who is the older sister of Aisha, she died in the 73rd year of Hijrah. After Hijrah, after the migration, at the age of 100. Asmāʼ died at the age of 100.
Right.
That was the 73rd year of Hijrah in Medina.
Yes.
This means that when Asmāʼ migrated to Medina, she was 27. At the age of 27. Many other historical records show that she was about 27 when she migrated. And we know by historical facts that Asmāʼ was 10 years older than Aisha. And we have many sources for this, 10 years between them, between her younger sister. And that means that when Aisha migrated to Medina, she was 17. And we know by fact that she married the Prophet after they migrated.
They did. They consummated the marriage after.
Exactly. And some say about 6 months after.
Yeah.
So that would make her either 17 or 18 because she migrated at the age of 17. The stronger view is she was about 18 when she married the Prophet. Now, fourth historical evidence I can give here, but the previous one, people can also refer to this book as well. It is called Khatam al-Anbiyā by Hikmet Berki, page 210.
Okay.
So they can refer to that as well.
Go read it if you like, yeah.
Yes. Fourth historical evidence here is in the initial years of prophethood, when the Quran began to be revealed at the beginning, there were people who embraced Islam the first. And they gave them this title, Sābiqūn al-Awwalūn. A group of people they were the first to embrace Islam. They gave them this title, Sābiqūn al-Awwalīn. Now, it's very interesting. Aisha's name is mentioned among names like Jubayr ibn Awwam, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Osman bin Affan, and Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. They are the Sābiqūn al-Awwalūn, which means they embraced Islam in the initial years, which the Quran began to be revealed in 610. So initial years. This is very interesting. So if we take Aisha's narration, only that one, as a benchmark, she would not have been born at that year. It was impossible.
Okay, so if we say she consummated the marriage at 9, she could not have been born because it's not possible because Islam was 12 years afterwards they migrated.
Yes. Yeah.
So that wouldn't suggest that she was born 3 years after the first revelation.
4 years, actually.
Or 3 to 4 years. Okay,
because
4 years.
If you calculate it, it's 614. It turns out that she was born in 614, which is not possible because she is considered a Sābiqūn al-Awwalūn amongst the people who are in the first 3 year. So that mathematically, it does not compute. That's another thing.
So she would have had to be old enough to even accept Islam?
Of course. And if we look at the historical facts, it seems like she was born in 605. making her at least 5 at the beginning of Revelation and 17 during the migration. Again, if you look at all these different historical facts, it always turns out to be like she was 17 when she migrated to Medina. This means she married the Prophet at least at the age of 17 or 18.
Wow.
So we have no doubts about that from a historical perspective, we can say. But as I said, there are many other evidences which I gathered here. The reason I took notes, as I said, I want people to go and have a look at the references if they wish. So we are talking, academically. We're not just making speculations here.
Yes.
There is another very powerful source, which all Muslims, Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat, will agree with, because they consider this person as a very powerful hadith imam, who is Imam Nawawi.
Yeah.
And in his book, Tahzibul Asmāʼ, volume 2, page 597, and there's another hadith which supports this as well. It is in Hakim Mustadrak, volume 3, 635. It is stated that Asmāʼ was born 595, in the year 595, Asmāʼ.
Okay, 595 years.
So she's the older sister.
She's older, and there's 10-year gap.
There's 10-year gap. And she embraced Islam at the age of 15, Asmāʼ, because this hadith is about, this report is about Asmāʼ. And since Aisha is 10 years younger, that puts her being born in 605 again.
605.
So 595, 605. And again, this makes her 17 during Hijrah, during the migration.
So both of those suggest that she was born around 605, Aisha radiallahu anha.
Yes.
Based on these calculations.
Yeah. And these are sahih. And they are reported by Imam Nawawi and also in Hakim Mustadrak. These are historical facts. So we have so many factual evidence, historical evidence against just one narration. But for some reason, people hold on to that narration. I think that's because of that Islamophobic, thing behind it. And they try to attack Islam through there. But these are all historical facts. Maybe another significant evidence comes from a hadith in Bukhari.
Okay.
Again, Sahih hadith. It is Fazaizul Quran, page 6. Aisha herself, again, says, I was a young girl playing with toys when the verse, the hour is their appointed time, and the hour will be the most catastrophic and most bitter. This is a verse in Surah Qamar, verse 46. She says, I was playing with toys when this verse was revealed.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing. She remembers the day this verse was revealed, but when we look at the historical facts, when the verse was revealed, it was actually revealed in the house of Ibn Arqam in the year 614.
614.
Well, she wasn't even born yet, according to the other narration.
What was it, according to the other narration?
She was born in 614.
614.
But she remembers, and she says, I was playing with toys.
Yeah, clearly she wasn't a newborn for her to remember.
It's impossible, because she says she remembers it.
Yes.
And moreover, when you look at this narration, it's impossible to accept that she married the Prophet at a very young age, because she was not supposed to have been born yet, as I said, in 614. But for someone to remember such an incident when a verse it was revealed, and the verse as well, because she mentions the verse as well, she had to have been at least 5-6 years old, at least, to remember that. So I think this is a very powerful evidence that she wasn't born in 614, definitely. Another important thing here maybe to remember, according to Aisha, that when she was married, she was very young. It contradicts all of the historical evidence, because the argument that she would have been, 614, this doesn't make sense, because many sources that we look at, historical sources, indicates, this is very interesting, I think this is a very powerful evidence, she was engaged to a person called Jubayr ibn Muṭʿim in year 617.
617.
In the year 617, that is before the marriage contract was done with the Prophet, 3 years before.
3 years before.
3 years before. If she was 6 when the marriage contract was done, she had to have been, at 3 years old.
Yeah, because initially she had a marriage contract with the Prophet, and then 3 years later it was consummated.
Yes.
So going on that I guess that 6 and the 9, that's where it comes from.
Yes.
So she would have had to be 3.
3, a baby.
Yeah.
When she was, engaged to Jubayr ibn Muṭʿim. This is preposterous, it's absurd.
Yeah.
No culture will accept that, specifically her father and mother. Think about that. It's ridiculous. It is not just, if there was such a case, the Arabs of the era of ignorance, they would have made this an issue in the first place.
Absolutely. They wouldn't let something like this slip because it was such a communal community. They would have said, you can't do that with your child.
It's a very powerful, argument to attack the Prophet.
Absolutely.
They never use it. They never mentioned because they knew that was a cultural thing at that time. So I think this is a very, very powerful argument that she could not have been 9 when she married the Prophet. She was at least 17 or 18. There is another report in Bukhari again. These are all Sahih hadiths in Bukhari. Salat 70. And in this hadith, Aisha explains the days of hardship in Mecca when some of the Sahaba, the companions, decided to migrate to Abyssinia, as you know, the famous migration to Habeshistan. Yes. She says, this is interesting, it's in the hadith, Sahih hadith, as I said, her father, Abu Bakr, was making plans to migrate as well.
Yeah.
That's what she says.
Documented, yeah.
Yeah, this is documented there. But the migration to Abyssinia took place in 613. So she's saying my father was, making plans to migrate to Abyssinia.
Yeah.
And it happens in 613.
And she was there.
She was there. Then she shouldn't be born at that time. 1 year before. She remembers an incident, 1 year before her birth.
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of dates. So just for clarity, the argument, we're arguing, or we know that she was born about 605.
Yes.
But some are alleging that she was born at 614. So you can see the mismatch in time. So since she was born in 605 and the migration happened 613, so she was 8. So that makes sense. But if she was born 614, how could she be talking about a migration that she wasn't born into?
8, you would remember, your father is preparing to migrate, but how are you going to remember something before you were born? When we look at this, how could she remember and explain events with details? Because she explains them with details as well, which happened a year before she was born.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly she was born. It doesn't make sense. So there are many different, evidences, historical evidences against just one narration, and which I think if you look at the Matan, you do an analysis on the text, you realize that cannot be correct. We understand that she is counting her age after she had the menstrual cycle. But there is one more thing here which I noted. There are different views on the time when Aisha died. But the most reliable historical source says that she was 74. At the age of 74, she died. Historians say that she lived 48 years after the death of the noble Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. 48 years. So if she lived 48 years after the Prophet died, 9 years with the Prophet, 9 or 10 years with the Prophet, because we know she got married after Hijrah, that makes or accumulates to 57 years, after she migrated to Medina. If she died at 74, 57 plus 17 makes 74. Again, it indicates that she migrated at the age of 18 and she married after that. And again, she's probably married the Prophet about 17 or 18. Maybe one last very important thing here, or I'll give you one more evidence. I think I took another note here.
Okay.
There are some other historical evidences that she was 18 when she married the Prophet, but I think this is an important one too. During the Battle of Uhud.
Yes.
During the Battle of Uhud, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not even allow underage boys to participate in the battle. So if they were 13, 14, the Prophet did not allow them. They had to be adults to join the battle. But if you, again, look at a hadith in Bukhari again, another authentic hadith, book 56, hadith 278, it states that Aisha was giving water to the wounded at Uhud. So the Prophet is not allowing 13, 14-year-old boys to participate in the battle. If we were to accept that illogical claim that she was born in 614, she would have been 11 at the Battle of Uhud. Taking an 11-year-old girl to a battle, which completely, contradicts the prophetic compassion, mercy. It's against what the Prophet understands. So there are many historical evidences. I couldn't get them all here, but I think this is an important evidence as well from the Quran.
Yeah.
If we look at Surah Nisa verse 6, where it states that the inheritance of orphans should be given to them after the age of marriage, when they reach the age of marriage. And this is signified in fiqh by the term rushd, when they become rashid. And it's usually, if you look at all Islamic fiqh scholars, this is after the age of 15. So it says, give the orphans their inheritance after the age of 15. Which means the age of marriage needs to be after 15, not before that. And this is Islamic law. And very interestingly, in the Hanafi fiqh, if you look at the Ottoman era, in the more later days, I think in the 1700s, the Ottoman jurists actually made a minimum age for marriage based on the Hanafi rulings. They said for females, age 17, for males, age 18. It's very interesting.
Very interesting.
So, there is no such a thing as, marriage at 9. And if people do that, they are not following Islamic, jurisprudence. They are acting against Islamic rulings. I would, clearly say that the age of marriage in Islam is at least 17 or 18 minimum. And our noble Prophet, ﷺ, if we look at all the hadiths, all the evidence there, he did marry Aisha about 18, when she was about 18. That's what it looks like according to all the evidence. But people, as I said, take one narration coming from Aisha against all these sahih, authentic narrations on the other side, and historical evidence as well. But maybe one advice to those who are Islamophobic, who attack our noble Prophet, before you do these things, maybe go and have a look at the historical context, how people used to live, what was the social norms then. But before you look at our noble Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, maybe you should do some research about the Middle Ages in Europe.
Yeah.
What was the minimum age of marriage there? It was 11. 11.
Wow.
They got married at 11. There were even some states, I believe, in the United States who allowed which had no minimum age with parental, consent. I think some of them are still valid at the moment.
I believe so.
So people could have got married in a modern day in the United States, in some states, if the parents are giving consent at the age of 12, 13, they could still get married. This is a reality, but we have provided the evidence.
We provided the
provided the
evidence that
evidence.
she could not have been 9 when she married the Prophet.
It
that
is not
she was
possible. Historically not possible.
It just would not add up. And based on everything, it's not like even variation. Everything's pointing towards 17, 18 years old when you calculate.
It ends up with the same age. That is the interesting thing.
With every evidence you provided, it ended up with that.
Yes.
So there wasn't even contradiction there. Very powerful evidence there for everyone. I hope you benefited from that. And, there we go. We've just responded to the Islamophobes, and we've also responded to any doubts that you may have had. And see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.